At approximately 9:42 a.m. on March 12, emergency services received a 911 call placed by Daniel Coleman, 37, reporting that his 8-year-old daughter, Lily Coleman, had collapsed and was experiencing severe convulsions following ingestion of over-the-counter medication. Coleman, an off-duty EMT, claimed he administered what he believed to be children's acetaminophen to treat her fever. Emergency medical services arrived on scene within 7 minutes and transported the child to St. Mary's Medical Center. Despite extensive resuscitation efforts, the child was pronounced deceased at 10:58 a.m. I arrived at the residence shortly thereafter to initiate a standard postmortem review in response to the unexplained death of a minor. The home was modest and orderly. A child's drawings were taped to the refrigerator. A plush cat toy rested on the sofa, still creased from where Lily had likely been lying. On the kitchen counter, I noted 2 nearly identical medicine bottles, one labeled Children's Acetaminophen, unopened, and the other a prescription cough suppressant containing codeine and dextromethorphan, partially used. Both bottles were pink in color, nearly indistinguishable at a glance. They had been stored in the same cabinet. Rachel Coleman, the child's mother, had been away shopping for groceries when the incident occurred. She returned home moments after EMS departed with the child. I interviewed her briefly at the hospital. Her eyes were wide and unfocused. Her hands trembled slightly as she repeated, "I told him where the medicine was. It's labeled. Red sticker. It's always been the same spot." Rachel's statement suggested a clear attempt to direct Daniel to the proper medication prior to her departure. She had warned him. She was adamant. I conducted my first interview with Daniel Coleman in the hallway outside the emergency room. He stood leaning against the wall, hands clasped behind his head. His speech was broken. "She had a fever," he said. "I just wanted her to feel better." When asked which medication he gave her, he hesitated. "The pink one. It looked right." Upon presenting the 2 bottles, he identified the cough suppressant as the one he had used, then quickly added, "But the bottles look the same, don't they?" I was tired. I didn't double-check. God, I didn't think. The timeline matched his story. Surveillance video from the local grocery store confirmed Rachel was away during the time of administration. Medical records show Lily had no known allergies, and the cause of death was consistent with overdose-related respiratory depression, an adverse reaction to codeine in a child with low body weight. Back at the scene, I noted signs of frantic behavior, an overturned glass of water, a small blanket tossed halfway across the couch, and the open medical cabinet door. Rachel's face when she returned home was unreadable, part grief, part disbelief. She clutched Lily's school sweater the entire time she spoke with me. She asked no questions about the investigation. Only one sentence left her mouth before she walked away. I told him exactly where it was. This case, from the outset, appeared to be a fatal accident. But grief reveals layers, and guilt has a way of twisting truth. Daniel Coleman may not have meant harm, but intent does not undo consequence. 2 days had passed since the incident at the Coleman residence. The shock had begun to set in, not just for the parents, but for everyone involved in the response. Pediatric fatalities under domestic supervision require due diligence, even in cases that appear accidental on the surface. The autopsy report confirmed our initial suspicion: acute opioid toxicity. The codeine dosage in Lily's bloodstream exceeded the pediatric threshold by a factor of 4. Her lungs showed signs of fluid buildup consistent with respiratory suppression. No underlying medical conditions. No evidence of foul play. Still, procedure demanded we reopen the conversation with both parents. Rachel Coleman declined an in-home follow-up. We met at a coffee shop near the hospital where Lily had died. She wore sunglasses, though it was cloudy, and kept her hands tightly clasped around a paper cup she never drank from. She answered my questions plainly. No, Lily had never taken prescription cough medicine. Yes, she had warned Daniel about the medicine cabinet. Yes, she had clearly separated the children's and adult medications. No, Daniel had never made a mistake like this before. Then she said something that stayed with me. I think he's punishing himself. But he's not saying it out loud. She paused. Her eyes didn't move from the tabletop. He hasn't cried. He hasn't touched her room. He just stares. Later that afternoon, I returned to the Coleman residence. Daniel answered the door slowly, wearing the same shirt I'd seen him in on the day of the incident. His hands were ink-stained. He said he'd been writing letters but didn't offer to show them. We sat at the kitchen table. The pink medicine bottles were gone, replaced by an empty flower vase and a single daffodil Rachel had picked that morning. I reviewed the timeline again. Daniel nodded throughout, only interjecting to say, I thought I was giving her the right one. I swear to God, I thought, then he stopped. There was a 5-second silence. Then he asked, what happens now? You think I'll be charged? It was the first time he'd said anything close to admitting guilt. I told him we weren't pressing charges, not yet. Not unless we found evidence of gross negligence or intent. That didn't comfort him. If anything, he looked more afraid. I noticed something peculiar as I left the home. Lily's bedroom door was open. On my first visit, it had been shut tightly. Now the room sat frozen in time. Stuffed animals arranged at the foot of the bed. A stack of picture books. Tiny pink socks on the floor like she had just slipped out of them. Daniel stood in the hallway, unmoving. Watching me look inside. I go in there every night, he said. I sit in her chair and just wait. For what? I asked. He didn't answer. Just stared at the blanket on the bed. Later that night, Rachel left me a voicemail. She'd gone back to the ER to speak with the doctor who pronounced Lily dead. She wanted to hear it again, word for word, that it wasn't something genetic, or a hidden disease, or a missed condition. The doctor told her plainly, if the correct medication had been given, she would be alive. Rachel didn't leave another message. I noted in my report that the psychological weight on both parents was increasing. No immediate danger, but Daniel's demeanor suggested growing instability. He had withdrawn from work, had not spoken to friends or extended family, and had avoided any public appearance since the funeral arrangements were set. Sometimes, grief collapses into silence. But silence, when fed by guilt, turns into something else. I received a call from St. Mary's Medical Center 4 days after the child's death, not from the ER, but from the psychiatric intake nurse. Rachel Coleman had brought her husband involuntarily, citing erratic behavior, insomnia, and what she described as emotional self-violence. Daniel Coleman had been found in Lily's room just past 3 a.m., sitting on the floor, holding her sweater to his face and whispering unintelligibly. He hadn't spoken directly to Rachel in over 24 hours. He refused meals. He'd unplugged the refrigerator, turned off all the clocks in the house, and removed the batteries from the smoke alarms. When I visited the psychiatric ward, Daniel was under voluntary 48-hour hold. I asked if he would speak with me. He agreed, but only through the glass partition. He looked thinner than before. Pale. He sat hunched, rubbing his thumb against the scar on his wrist from an old EMT incident. I see her, he said softly. In the doorway. Sometimes she looks confused, like she doesn't understand what happened. Sometimes she looks scared. Do you sleep? I asked. He shook his head. Not really. Every time I close my eyes, I hear her coughing. It gets louder. Then nothing. I asked if he had considered harming himself. He didn't answer directly, but his eyes gave me more than words ever could. Rachel, meanwhile, had taken on the weight of survival. I met her at the cemetery, where she was laying fresh carnations on Lily's grave. Her face was thinner, the dark circles under her eyes pronounced. I know he didn't mean to, she said, almost to herself. But I can't look at him without seeing it. The bottle. Her lips turning blue. The way he froze. Rachel hadn't filed for separation, but she had moved in with her sister temporarily. When I asked if she intended to return, she said, only if he comes back to this world. Right now, he's stuck somewhere else. The case had no criminal momentum left. Every piece of forensic evidence pointed to mistake, not malice. But there was a psychological unraveling underway that no legal outcome could resolve. And sometimes, I've learned, the human mind delivers its own verdict long before any court ever can. I received the call at 6:14 a.m. It came from Rachel Coleman's sister, Emily Voss. Her voice trembled. "He's gone," she said. "Daniel. He's gone." When I arrived at the Coleman residence, patrol officers had already secured the scene. Yellow tape stretched across the front walkway. Rachel sat on the curb in a bathrobe, arms wrapped around her knees, rocking slowly. Her face was expressionless. Not empty, just shut off, like the power had gone out behind her eyes. Inside the house, in the master bedroom, Daniel Coleman's body was found hanging from a ceiling beam. A chair had been kicked away. The scene was undisturbed. No forced entry. No evidence of alcohol or drugs. Only a folded letter placed neatly on the bedside table, addressed to Rachel. The note, now part of the case file, read as follows. Rachel. I don't know how to live in this house anymore. I don't know how to walk through her room or hear your voice or feel the weight of my own hands without thinking of what I did. It was a mistake. But I didn't admit it soon enough. I let you hurt longer. I watched you fall apart and didn't say the words when they mattered. I loved her. I love you. But I killed our daughter. And I've killed myself 100 times each day since. I'm sorry I'm leaving you with this pain. But I don't know how to carry it anymore. Tell Lily I'm coming to find her. Daniel. No additional notes. No hesitation marks. His decision, it seemed, had been made with quiet, deliberate finality. Rachel didn't speak for hours. The coroner arrived. The body was removed. I remained on scene longer than necessary, filling out paperwork I could have done back at the precinct. Something about the silence in that home made it impossible to walk away. Later that evening, Rachel called me. Her voice was hoarse but calm. I read the letter, she said. He wanted forgiveness. But he took the one thing I had left to give. I asked if she had known he was close to this. She said no. He cried once, 2 nights ago. First time since Lily died. I thought it meant something was healing. She paused. Then added, turns out it was just the last drop before he broke. We closed the case file the next morning. Official ruling, death by suicide. No foul play. No pending charges. The child's death was now logged as a closed accidental overdose. The father's death, a consequence of compounded trauma. But paperwork doesn't tell the whole story. It can't. It doesn't capture the smell of the stuffed animal still on Lily's bed. The black scuff marks from Daniel's boots worn during EMS shifts that he never returned to. It doesn't explain the haunting look in Rachel's eyes when she said, "Now I'm the only one left." Sometimes justice isn't about prosecution. Sometimes it's just the long, cold work of understanding how a home, any home, can unravel when love, loss, and guilt collide all at once. It had been a week since Daniel Coleman took his own life. Officially, the file was closed. But grief has a way of lingering in places paperwork can't reach. Out of habit more than duty, I called Rachel Coleman. I didn't expect her to answer. But she did. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Not broken, measured, like someone walking through a dream they hadn't chosen. "I need to ask you something," she said. "And I need you to tell me I'm not going crazy." We met the next morning at St. Mary's, in the same hallway where Lily had died weeks earlier. Rachel sat down across from me, slid a sealed envelope across the table. I opened it slowly. Ultrasound photos. 12 weeks. Heartbeat confirmed. She didn't say anything for a full minute. Then finally, she whispered, "I didn't even know until after Daniel died." She'd gone in after experiencing fatigue, headaches, things she attributed to stress. The doctor asked the standard questions. When the test came back positive, Rachel laughed. She thought it had to be a mistake. A joke. But the grainy image on the monitor didn't lie. A new life. Conceived before the accident. Before Lily. Before everything collapsed. She looked at me, trembling. "What does it mean? I lost my daughter. I lost my husband. And now, this?" I didn't have an answer. All I could do was listen. She went on. "At first, I hated it. I thought it was some cruel joke from the universe. But then I heard the heartbeat. It was strong. Like hers was. She hadn't told anyone yet. Not her sister. Not her therapist. Just me. "You're the only person who saw the whole thing," she said. "Who knows what really happened? I thought maybe, you'd understand. I'm not a man who believes in signs." But as she held the ultrasound photo like it was made of glass, I felt something I couldn't quite define. A crack in the darkness. A tremor in the grief. Not hope exactly, but something adjacent to it. Before I left, she said one last thing. "I'm naming the baby June. If it's a girl." June was the name Lily wanted for a little sister. And then she looked at me with eyes that weren't empty anymore. Nearly a month had passed since Daniel Coleman's death. The house on Oak Hill Drive had gone quiet again, no more police tape, no parked ambulances, no stream of neighbors offering casseroles wrapped in pity. But something had changed inside that quiet. Something that made me drive past the house every few days, as if I expected a sign in the window or a figure on the porch to tell me how Rachel was doing. I didn't need to guess for long. One afternoon, she called. "I've started fixing things," she said. "I thought maybe you should know." I stopped by the next morning. She met me at the door, wearing an oversized flannel shirt and paint-speckled leggings. Her eyes were clearer, though tired. Behind her, I could see the living room had been rearranged. The sofa faced a different direction. The photos on the mantel had been replaced. Daniel and Lily were still there, but smaller, more selective. Less shrine, more memory. "I couldn't stay in bed all day," she said. "So I gave myself rules." She showed me the nursery she was setting up. Soft green walls. A rocking chair Daniel had once promised to repair, now finally fixed. She placed her hand on her stomach, rounding now, and gave a small, uncertain smile. "This baby doesn't know any of that happened," she said. "She's just starting." We sat for a while in Lily's old room. Rachel had turned it into a writing space. Her daughter's drawing still hung in one corner, now framed. On the desk sat a leather-bound journal titled simply, "Letters to You." I didn't ask who "you" was. She answered anyway. "Some of them are to Lily. Some to Daniel. Some to the baby. And one or two, to myself." Rachel spoke in quiet, measured terms, like someone navigating a minefield that had already gone off. She described dreams where Lily walked beside her in silence. Moments in the grocery store where she reached for snacks her daughter used to love, then froze mid-aisle. The phantom cries at night. The weight of a name she hadn't fully spoken aloud until last week. "June," she said. "It feels strange to say it out loud, like I'm betraying the grief. But she's real. And I want her to know joy. I want her to know she wasn't born from tragedy, even if she came after one." Before I left, Rachel pulled a folded note from her pocket. "I found this in Daniel's nightstand," she said. "It's not part of the official letter. It's different." The paper was worn, smudged with thumbprints. The handwriting shaky but unmistakable. If you're reading this, and you're still here, thank you. I hope you remember that even my worst mistake began with love. I was trying to help. I just didn't know how to stop the damage once it started. If there's anything left of me in this world, let it live through kindness. Through her. Rachel folded it back and tucked it away like a prayer. There are no arrests in this case. No trials. No restitution that fits the scale of what was lost. But as I watched Rachel close the door behind me, one hand on her stomach and the other on the doorframe, I realized that survival itself, when earned like this, is its own kind of justice. Rachel Coleman gave birth on a Thursday morning just before dawn. No sirens. No panic. No mistakes this time. I received the news via a handwritten card that arrived at the precinct. The envelope was cream-colored, with my name written in delicate script. Inside was a photo, Rachel in a hospital bed, holding a tiny infant wrapped in soft yellow cloth. Her face was wet with tears, but there was a smile. On the back, she wrote. Her name is June Lily Coleman. 8 pounds. Healthy. She's here. I kept the card. 2 weeks later, I visited her for the last time. The house was the same, but the air was different, less heavy. The shadows didn't linger as long. Rachel opened the door with June cradled against her chest. She looked tired, but peaceful. There was a chair ready for me in the living room, and I sat there as she moved about the kitchen, preparing tea one-handed. She cries like her sister did, she said. Same soft whimper, same twitch in her right foot when she sleeps. She didn't say it with sadness, just quiet awe. As if June was both a new soul and an echo. The nursery was now fully arranged. Books lined the shelf. A mobile spun slowly above the crib. The same rocking chair Daniel once promised to fix now rocked steadily as Rachel nursed her daughter. She doesn't know yet what came before her, Rachel said. But one day, I'll tell her. Not all at once. Just enough to know she was born into something that hurt, but not something that broke. I stayed for an hour. Then I stood to leave. Rachel walked me to the door. Before I stepped outside, she touched my arm. I want you to know, she said, you weren't just a detective to me. You were someone who saw us. Really saw us. I nodded. I didn't have the right words. I never do at the end of cases like this. Somewhere behind her, June stirred in her blanket, let out a soft coo, and drifted back to sleep. Life had returned to the house on Oak Hill Drive. Not untouched. Never untouched. But breathing again. And sometimes, that's all we can ask for.